کنفرانس در کنگره آمریکا. قطعنامه دو حزبی با امضای 158 تن از اعضای مجلس نمایندگان. قسمت دوم.
حمایت از قیام مردم ایران و طرح 10 ماده‌ای خانم مریم رجوی. برقراری یک ایران دموکراتیک، غیر مذهبی، غیر اتمی و جمهوری. محکوم کردن نقض حقوق بشر و تروریسم دولتی توسط حکومت ایران.
پال گوسار، نماینده کنگره آمریکا از آریزونا.
Americans, Europeans and Iranians support Madam Rajavi's work.
آمریکایی‌ها، اروپایی‌ها و ایرانی‌ها از تلاش‌های خانم رجوی برای عدالت و آزادی در ایران حمایت می‌کنند. این قطعنامه حمایت از خواست مردم ایران برای برقراری یک جمهوری دموکراتیک مبتنی بر جدایی دین و دولت و غیر هسته‌ای و محکومیت نقض حقوق بشر و تروریسم رژیم ایران است.
جودی چو، نماینده کنگره آمریکا از کالیفرنیا.
I am a proud co-sponsor of House Resolution 118.
من با افتخار از حامیان قطعنامه 118 کنگره هستم. این قطعنامه مهم حملات تروریستی مورد حمایت حکومت ایران را محکوم می‌کند و از مردم ایران و اعتراضات مشروعشان علیه رژیم ایران حمایت می‌کند.
دن کرنشاو، نماینده کنگره آمریکا از تگزاس. رژیم ایران یک حکومت حامی ترور است و تا آنجا پیش رفت که از مصونیت دیپلماتیک برای انتقال بمب در خاک اروپا استفاده کرد. ما نمی‌توانیم اجازه دهیم که خامنه‌ای و دولت فاسد وی به این فجایع علیه مردم ایران ادامه دهند.
دان بیکن، نماینده کنگره آمریکا از نبراسکا. رژیم ایران همچنان بزرگترین صادرکننده ترور در جهان است. آنها باید بدانند نمی‌توانند به راحتی به آزار و وحشت مردم ایران ادامه داده و خود را مسئول از مجازات و پیامدهای جنایت‌های خود بدانند.
Hi, I'm Congressman Paul Gosar, representing Arizona's 4th Congressional District, of which I am proud to join 112 of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle as a co-sponsor. This bill, quote, expresses support for the Iranian people's desire for a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear Republic of Iran, and condemning violations of human rights and state-sponsored terrorism by the Iranian government. I applaud Belgium's recent decision to issue the maximum punishment of 20 years imprisonment to Iranian diplomat al-Assadi for masterminding the terror plot against the 2018 Free Iran gathering in Paris. This is a clear case of state-sponsored terrorism with full facilitation of the foreign ministry. Mr. Assadi masqueraded as an Iranian diplomat who covertly conducted years of intelligence operations across Europe, recruited and established a network of agents of terror in multiple countries, and conspired to commit mass murder. The conviction of an Iranian official is significant and a step in the right direction in our global fight against this brutal regime. Iranian dissidents are persecuted and deplatformed. They are threatened with exposure and violence. They are fired from jobs. They are imprisoned on fake or exaggerated charges. The Iranian regime works with big tech to censor the truth. These are outrageous civil rights violations. Americans, Europeans, and Iranians support Madam Rajavi's work to pursue justice and freedom in Iran. We all have every confidence that one day Iran will break free from the chains of this regime. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, and I'm proud to stand with you. We know that Iran is better than its government. We saw that in 2019 as popular protests against Iran's cruel government spread throughout the country. At least 100 cities became home to protests by proud Iranians who rejected the violence of the mullahs. But tragically, violence is all the mullahs know. According to Amnesty International, many of the protesters who were detained by the government were tortured, beaten, waterboarded, shocked, and more. This is the same for anyone who dares to speak out against Iran's cruel leaders, even those abroad. Iran's support for terrorism has extended far and wide, including to South Africa, where there was a plot to assassinate America's ambassador there, as well as Belgium, where just this month an Iranian diplomat was sentenced to prison for planning a bomb attack at the 2018 Free Iran gathering. If we are to put an end to Iran's history of exporting terror and threatening the lives of its own citizens, Americans, and others, then the Iranian regime must know that we will stand up to their violence and oppression. That is why I supported extending the UN arms embargo on Iran, and it is why I am a proud co-sponsor of House Resolution 118. This critical resolution condemns Iranian state-sponsored terrorist attacks and expresses support for the people of Iran who are engaged in legitimate and peaceful protests against the Iranian regime. I am proud that this resolution has over 100 co-sponsors already, which sends a clear signal to the people of Iran that they are not alone. The Iranian people deserve to be free from the harsh and violent rule of Iran's mullahs, and the world deserves to feel safe from Iranian support for terror and violence. I support your work to establish a free and democratic Iran that works with the U.S. and others to build a safer world. So thank you all for your important work to promote human rights and a more free Iran.
Hi, I'm Congressman Dan Crenshaw from Houston, Texas. Joining you today because freedom and human rights matter. Iranian people's freedom and human rights matter. The regime of the Ayatollah has been built for decades on the violation of those rights, with grave and serious oppression and violence against those who dare to challenge them. We have seen this regime again and again since it came to power exercise its brutality against the Iranian people. In 1979, 1988, 2009, and from 2019 until today, when the Iranian people take to the streets to demand their rights, and the regime has shown their true face. They've shown their violence. They've shown their brutality. Recently, the European court found an Iranian diplomat guilty of a 2018 plot to bomb a gathering in Paris of Iranians. This ruling confirmed what many of us have long known. The Iranian regime is a state sponsor of terror, which actually went as far as to use protected diplomatic pouches to transport bombs on European soil. We cannot allow his corrupt government to continue these atrocities and terror against the Iranian people. That's why I was proud to join Representative Tom McClintock's House Resolution 118 and support the rights of the people of Iran to a democratic, secular, and non-nuclear government that does not sponsor and prioritize the Iranian people to know we see what is happening in your country. We are with you. That is why more than 110 Republicans and Democrats joined this bill on its introduction. This sends a clear message to the new administration that it cannot be fooled by the regime like prior administrations have been. There is no moderation with them. There is no peacemaker among them. We cannot and must not legitimize them. We've seen the consequences of weakness and the successes of sustained and targeted pressure. We must recognize the brutality of his regime, and instead of staying silent and hoping things get better, We must proudly and openly stand with the brave Iranian people who are standing up and demanding to be recognized. They're demanding their God-given freedom and respect for their human rights. We support the Iranian people, not just because we oppose the Ayatollah, but because we know the Iranian people. I'm proud to stand with you and be your voice in this important and noble cause. Thank you.
Hello, Salam Halei Shoma Shatareh. I'm Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska. Since 2017, the Iranian government has met peaceful protests in hundreds of cities across Iran with lethal force. Since these protests began, thousands of Iranian citizens have been killed or injured by Iranian security forces. In the 116th Congress, the House of Representatives passed House Resolution 752, which affirmed the rights of the people of Iran to free expression and condemning the Iranian regime for its crackdown on legitimate protests. This bill urged the United States administration to engage the United Nations Security Council and our international partners and allies to condemn the ongoing human rights crisis being perpetrated by the Iranian regime, and to establish a mechanism by which the United Nations can monitor and call attention to Iran's brutal and unlawful repression of its people. Unfortunately, since the House of Representatives passed this resolution a year ago, the human rights situation in Iran has continued to decline. According to the September 2020 Amnesty International report, we have learned that detained protesters were subjected to widespread torture, including beatings, floggings, electrical shock, mock executions, waterboarding, and sexual violence. And just a few days ago, the world was shocked to learn that a senior Iranian diplomat was convicted by a Belgian court for conspiracy to commit a murder in connection with a planned terror plot in Paris. This terror plot targeted Iranian dissidents in the heart of Europe and serves as a stark reminder that the Iranian regime is a threat to the entire world, not just its own citizens. The Iranian regime remains the world's top exporter of terror and simply cannot be allowed to continue brutalizing its own people and terrorizing others without penalty or consequence. For this reason, I will soon be joining my colleagues in the House of Representatives in introducing a new resolution condemning the actions of the Iranian regime. I look forward to swift bipartisan passage of this resolution in the House in the weeks ahead. In recognition of the persistent international threat posed by the Iranian regime, last week I also introduced the Iranian Arms Transfer Prevention Act of 2021, a new bill that seeks to reimpose the longstanding international arms embargo on Iran that the United Nations allowed to lapse last year. While there may be differences in opinion on how best to contain Iran's nuclear ambitions, one thing we can all agree on is that countries like Russia and China should not be selling weapons and dangerous technologies to the world's top exporter of terror. In closing, I want to reemphasize that I stand by you, the noble and virtuous Iranian people, in your quest for freedom and human dignity. I will continue to be a voice for freedom in Iran that will one day give you the government that you deserve. Thank you, and Koda Hafez.